Don't worry about that. Okay.
Good morning. Last night we saw relative calm in our region after several days of activity and a horrific night of violence. St. Louis County police officers stopped about 25 cars for outstanding warrants and confiscated 14 or 15 guns last night and early this morning. Across the country and here in our region, buildings have been set on fire. The president has fanned the flames, treating this unrest as if it were a reality show. And it's not. It's really not. Our nation is divided, and we need a president who can show us that our country has a kind heart. So many people in our country have been mourning the death of George Floyd, and I join them in mourning his death. Black and brown people have for decades seen broken promises, progress stilted, and justice delayed. For the past week, we have seen the streets across the country in our region filled with marchers who have been outraged by the treatment of African Americans historically. Protesting in the street has been a long part of our country's history, the right to assemble, the right to free speech. It's what makes us different from other countries in the world. But criminals have hijacked this moment of public discourse. Those who commit crimes do nothing to honor the memory of George Floyd. So let's stand together and condemn this violence and provide support to our law enforcement officers to help us get these criminals off the street. Throughout this unrest, we continue to work on the COVID-19 pandemic. In our region, we have had over 400 people who have died from COVID-19 and another 6,000 who have tested positive. But we are beginning to see some progress on this front. We are now able to test more than 1,000 people daily. We have the average positivity rate, people who test positive, is down to 4.2%. The social mixing guidelines that we have all adopted have allowed us to make significant progress. The unrest could, unfortunately, result in a bump in these numbers, and that's why I've asked everyone who has participated in a march or protest to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks unless they were able to wear a mask or to be socially distant from others. Our response to the COVID-19 crisis includes spending the federal stimulus grant of $173 million in our community in ways that help the people who need it the most. You can follow this spending online at stlcorona.com on our transparency portal, or tune into the County Council Oversight Committee hearings every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock. We plan to dedicate about $24 million of those funds to the humanitarian response. We've divided this crisis into 3 crises: the public health crisis, the humanitarian crisis, and the economic crisis. The awards from the COVID-19 humanitarian response will go into 3 categories: housing services, including senior and homebound programs, utility assistance, and homeless prevention; technology, for addressing health and social services; and educational and support networks, and this includes prepaid cell phones, tablets, computers, and Wi-Fi hotspots; social and emotional wellness for children, which includes technical assistance to child care providers and centers or in-home child care providers. I'd like to ask Cora Faith Walker, my Director of Policy, to come forward now and tell us a little bit more about the details of the humanitarian program. Cora?
Thank you, Dr. Page. Good morning. My name is Cora Faith Walker. I am the Director of Policy for St. Louis County Executive, Dr. Sam Page. And I am really pleased this morning to talk a little bit more about the Humanitarian Response Program as well as the Child Care Relief Program. Over the past several weeks, the Humanitarian Response Program team, which was led by Deborah Patterson, who is the lead volunteer, Emily Koenig, who's the acting director Children's Services Fund, Andrea Jackson Jennings, who's the Director of the Department of Human Services, and Molly Metzger, who is the Senior Policy Advisor, have been working around the clock to try to get this program stood up. As Dr. Page said, we've recognized that there are problems and challenges related to the COVID-19 pandemic around public health, but also around the humanitarian response. And so today we are pleased to announce that we will be announcing $9.5 million in awards that will be going through the humanitarian response program. As Dr. Page said, that there are three main areas in funding that are going to be prioritized in the humanitarian response program. The Senior and Homebound program will receive $1 million worth of funding. The housing stabilization will be broken down into housing prevention or homelessness prevention, as well as housing and utility assistance. Under homelessness prevention, $250,000 will go to screening and referrals. $2.3 million will go to housing advocacy, and another $210,000 will go to legal advocacy. Additionally, under the housing and utility assistance portion of the program, $2.5 million will be made available for temporary financial housing assistance, which will include rental and mortgage assistance. $1.7 million will go to utility assistance, and another $40,000 under this program will go to legal advocacy. Additionally, under the technology portion, there will be $1 million that will be allocated. And then under the social and emotional wellness of children, another $500,000 that will be allocated. Now, in addition to the humanitarian response program, we are also very pleased to announce the Child Care Relief Program. Now, over the past several weeks, St. Louis County has heard from child care providers and have conducted several listening sessions to help understand the challenges that providers are having in terms of operating their businesses through the COVID-19 crisis, working to prepare to open or reopen for children and families who are returning back to work as the economy reopens, and then also sustaining their businesses through financial hardships that have been brought by the shutdown. Now, based on those conversations, we've determined that economic recovery from COVID-19 and the effects of COVID-19 require access to safe, reliable, and quality child care programs, and that mandates a substantial, direct, and targeted funding support to the child care providers in order to make that access available. We further determined that child care facilities are in need of economic support to help with the cost of business interruption, and accordingly, St. Louis County has allocated approximately $5.9 million from its CARES funding that will go to the Child Care Relief Program. All licensed and license exempt child care providers that are located in St. Louis County will be eligible for the funding through the Child Care Relief Program. Now, we know that this is not going to be enough to really deal with the challenges and the needs that face child care providers and the real sort of lack of investment that has occurred over decades in child care and child care relief. But we also recognize that child care is essential, and its infrastructure is essential to the Missouri's economy, and providing a safe place for children to grow and develop and learn while their parents work is critical. So I would like to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of folks who've really helped us in our understanding of all of this. Katie Kaufman and Alicia Lanier of Ready by 21, Robin Phillip of Child Care Aware, Craig Stevenson of Missouri's Kids Win, Steve Zwolak with UCC and Loom Institute, and of course Jason Purnell with the Rapid Response Team. Information about both the Humanitarian Relief or Response Program and the Child Care Relief Program can be found online at stlcorona.com. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
After you said 24 million humanitarian response, and then I heard 9.5 and 5
Okay. Some of that is held in reserve and will not be targeted for allocation just yet. We don't know what October and November bring, so we want to hold some back in reserve. You want to add anything to that, Cora?
And additionally, that $24 million includes the amount that's already gone to the food distribution program, and then the child care program. So all in total, between the $9.5 million that are made available through the Humanitarian Response Program requests for proposals, which are the grant awards, and the child care program and the food distribution, that amounts to about $24 million.
Will the city have access to any of those funds? Are you working with the city in any way with that? And then how much money after that 24 million allocation is left over in the CARES? Like, how many more people can we help after these programs?
I would refer you to our transparency portal at stlcorona.com to track that. We have budgeted that, and we also held significant amount in reserve because we don't know exactly what to expect in the fall. But we do understand that this is a stimulus grant, and we want to get it into the hands of people who need it the most as soon as possible, with some prudence to what the winter might bring, what unknowns might be there. We are working cooperatively with the City of St. Louis on many programs, including contact tracing and our rapid response, our humanitarian response that's been coordinated by Jason Purnell, which is really multi-jurisdictional. The federal law does limit our ability to make direct payments to other counties that are other political subdivisions that are not entirely within St. Louis County, and we will follow the federal law in that regard. But that does not stop us from coordinating on many fronts on the humanitarian relief and public health, which we have done and we will continue to do.
And then Dr. Page, this is obviously going to be, a welcome thing for these businesses that are in need, but you were just talking about how we're trying to navigate all of you guys have been trying to navigate some of this unrest that we've been dealing with in the midst of a pandemic. What do you have to say to business owners who have been shut down for a long time, now just opening their doors? Some of them had to close again, they've been boarded up. I mean, what do you want to know about the county's support for businesses?
Well, I think our small businesses in our community should understand that the county government is here to help you be successful. And our role in county government is to navigate this historic pandemic and this historic economic crisis that we haven't seen in 100 years or more. And we're going to get through it. We know it's difficult, we know it's challenging, we know it's frustrating, but the resources of county government will be applied in a thoughtful and productive and supportive way to get everyone in the position to move forward. We understand this unrest is challenging, and we will make sure that our St. Louis County Police Department and all of the structures of government manage that unrest in a thoughtful and responsible way to protect the protesters and the marchers and their rights to assemble and to speak freely, and to deal with looters and criminals in a much different way.
And then can you talk about the curfew at all, whether there was any talk of imposing one in St. Louis County this week? I know your officers were hard at work last night.
Yeah, we had a lot going on last night, but we were able to manage that without countywide curfew. We would support any municipality who feels like they are particularly challenged and would like to have a curfew. At the same time, I asked residents last night if they to go home when they could and stay home and stay off the streets and let law enforcement and first responders have the streets so they can take care of us and keep us safe. We'll watch this moving forward, but I believe our St. Louis County Police Department and the municipal police departments working cooperatively managed everything last night just fine in a way that we should all be proud of, and I expect them to continue to do so, but at this point I don't have any plans for a general countywide curfew. Other questions? Okay, thank you. Have a good day.